Hey guys, so today's video is going to be slightly different to normal. I'm not playing a game against anybody. This is actually a lesson that I did with Richard, new student for which was on Friday, so just a couple of days ago. And I thought there was so much value for the beginner, someone who's wanting to get beyond 1,000 in this lesson that I asked him if he didn't mind me publishing it on my channel. He said no, it's absolutely fine. So, with his permission, this is the lesson that we did on Friday. Now, the way that I normally work in these, I've got one or two lessons that I've published with permission on the channel. Is what the way I normally work is that we actually just take on one of the bots on chess.com together, and I get the student to explain their thought process. How do they read the board? How do they come up with their candidate moves, and then select the move that they think is best. And then we'll just bounce ideas off each other. I might make suggestions and just add more insight from my perspective as an intermediate player, right? And then we'll try and beat the bot together. And normally we can do that in 60 minutes. And we'll normally record the session, and they get the recording that they can review. And I just think it's a really useful way for beginners and people who are just trying to grow to pick up a bunch of tips about somebody who's a few hundred points higher rated than them, that really show them the path in front of them, that how they can get those few hundred points better. Okay, so that's it. 60-minute lesson. I'm going to share most of it. We're going to share the whole game with the bot. Hopefully, if you're rated under like 1,100, 1,200, you should get a heap of value and a bunch of tips from this. So sit back and enjoy this free lesson.
All right, so the last bot that I beat is this guy, Pablo.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to play this guy again.
Yeah, we can play him again.
Now, so now I'm curious, which should I do? I feel like I'm more successful with when I play white than I am with black. I'm wondering if I should do black.
Yeah, that's
do you have
fine.
any recommendations there?
Either way, it'll all go random or whatever. I mean, yeah, but white does have an advantage. You start the game like 0.25 up as white.
Up. I feel like I'm a little bit more comfortable with white, and I feel like when I black, I'm more scared. So I almost want to go as black against the bot, with you, just so let's pick this guy out. I'll be black.
Okay. So
perfect.
1,600. Okay.
So
E4. What's your normal? Do you have a
my normal? So my normal is to pull my knight out right here, to get ready to go into King's Indian like that. There was a period where I was doing the Dragon, which is very similar setup to King's Indian, based off an Eric Rosen video, I think. I think you watch Eric Rosen as well, where I think you do like this, kind of go into the Sicilian.
That's Sicilian, then the kind of King's Indian, yeah. Well, you shouldn't really play your knight out on the first move.
No? Yeah, because I have to push this.
Correct, yeah. So you can.
Yeah, and I do that. If you watch some of my games, sometimes I remember to do this, and sometimes I forget. So then my knight gets booted with this, and then I'm off to a bad start. Yeah, I had a game where I recovered from that, playing a higher level player, like an 8 something, but yeah, not pretty. So yeah, I guess here is my typical move then, to stop this pawn from coming down, and then the knight.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and play that.
And D4.
So he's grabbing space.
Grabbing the center, yeah. It's now nice.
And then,
it's normal. Are you comfortable with the notation on the board?
Yeah. If you call it out that way, not F6, yeah, yep. It'll take me a second, but I actually like thinking about it that way. For a while, when I was playing on the board chess with my kids, I was writing down the moves. I got like a book to record it to try to get better at the chess notation.
Yeah. So it just comes. It just comes through practice and experience. It really isn't an issue. Okay, so you're not
exactly.
What do you normally do now? Do you play G6 and then?
Yeah, I do the G6 right here, and then get ready for this to get ready to castle.
Yep.
Because he's not really threatening anything. So yeah, in this point, I would just do the castle move, or the prep for it. Yeah, same here. I'm gonna do that unless there's any other reason not to.
Not that I can see. So basically, like the rule is, you need to know where you are in the storyline of the game. And right now, you're in chapter 1, the opening, and your default should be to develop your pieces, unless there is a pressing tactical threat or opportunity. In the absence of any pressing tactics, then you should always go back to developing your pieces. So you want to control the board. Yeah, you want to get your king safe as early as possible. Okay.
And then here.
And also always remember to at least ask yourself the question, why did my opponent play that move? So why do you think h3?
I mean, when I push just one pawn up, so I can push another one up, and it's covered, I guess, so he can push that. I can't take with a knight.
That's definitely a possibility. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can only guess because you don't know exactly what your opponent's doing, but it's better to have at least an idea, a hypothesis, even if it's wrong, than no idea at all. Yeah. So you should always ask yourself the question. I mean, one option could be that he's just preventing you from playing knight g4.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, because now that square is bad for me. So if I get booted with the knight, where can I go? I'm like back here or here.
Yeah.
I actually can't see that. I'd have to do something like that.
But still, you've got this thing where, because you've played your d6 pawn, if he does push e5, you can capture with your d pawn. And then if pawn recaptures, if d recaptures, you trade queens. And what's your opponent going to do in that instance? I mean, they've got to capture the queen. There's no other legal route.
So he's lost his castling rights. So that's why it's good for me to trade.
He actually has two options.
Oh, she can do this.
So either he moves the king and loses castling rights, or he captures with the knight. And if he captures with the knight, you can capture on you can play knight e4. Yeah, because that pawn's moved forwards.
Oh, so I win the pawn. So either he's given up a pawn, or he's given up the ability to castle.
Yeah, I don't think you win a pawn. Hang on. So,
well, if he takes back with this, then you said I could take this pawn, right?
That pawn is the pawn that's moved forward to e5 to threaten.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
So you capture, he recaptures, you trade queens, and then you move your knight, and you're okay. Yeah. So
okay, so then just I get an outpost for a knight as well.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. It's not strictly an outpost. An outpost is when there are no pawns on the adjacent files that can move forward and kick you away, but there is an f pawn there.
Oh, that's the definition. Okay, I didn't really realize that. So because of this f pawn, that would not be an outpost.
Yeah, so an outpost means, and generally you'd be defended by a pawn or something, but yeah, an outpost means that there's no pawns that can hurry you away from that square, that you are stuck on that square for the duration unless your opponent wants to attack you with pieces.
Good to know.
Okay.
All right, so here I'll just go ahead and castle then.
Yep.
And I think one of the reasons I selected King's Indian was based off of either Gotham or, okay, he's doing this, or Eric Rosen, where they said almost always you can go into it and there's not much they can do to make me deter from that. I guess that's kind of why I kind of defaulted to this in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so obviously here I put that pawn to take if he pushed.
Yeah.
So we're going to get in that scenario which you mentioned where we might be trading queens.
He may capture with a knight as well. Okay.
So now I take my queen.
I mean, yeah. I mean, do you have options? No, I think he's almost bound to recapture with the knight. So if you've seen some of my recent videos, I've been doing this thing that my tutor taught me, which is how you score your development. Have you seen that?
The counting. So yeah, castling counts as 2. Mm-hmm. This is 1. That's 1. If he does that, I guess it's undeveloping that knight. So then he only has 1.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to be 4-1 up.
Yeah. So that's good for me. So that's good. So that's how I can judge if this is a good time to trade queens or not.
Yeah.
All right. So it looks like it's good for me to trade queens.
I think go ahead and do that. Yeah. Oh, he took with the king.
He did not take with the knight. So now I have to boot my knight and I can lose it. So now what options do I have? I go here. I cannot go there because that one is red.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can just go here, right?
Yeah. So out of those, which do you think is
Oh
better?
no, he can take me with that as well.
Yeah. So e4 is out. You can just that you'd be hanging on e4.
And that's out. So I really only have one choice, which is to go to d7.
Yeah. You've got h5, but that's horrible, and e8 as well.
Oh yeah, here. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, yeah, just go to d7.
And the good thing about d7 is you've actually now got two pieces hitting e5.
I got those
All
two
right.
pieces. Now he's attacking this pawn, which is not defended at all. He's also attacking this pawn, which is not defended at all.
Yeah.
Interesting. I can defend this. No, I can't.
You can defend one of them, but not both. So which is the most serious threat?
Okay, so then the one that's still red because he forks my bishop with my king.
Okay, so if he captures that one, e7, you have to move your king.
Yep, I go here.
The unique thing about a check with a knight or an attack with a knight is you can't block it because knights are jumping pieces.
Because they can jump.
Yeah.
Yep.
So unless you can actually capture the knight, then you have to move the king. Okay. So then he might grab your pawn. Okay. But there's another threat as well. If you look at the other pawn,
Let's see. This pawn here,
if he captures that one, what's the issue there?
I lose my rook. Oh, I see, yeah. So that's probably,
The rook can't move, yeah?
yep. He's
So-
definitely pinned.
So let's list the things that you want to do. Okay. You want to, you know you can't save both pawns. How can you maybe defend one of your pawns and save your rook?
Let's see. If I want to defend this pawn, how can I defend that
So
pawn?
if I was white, I would capture on c7 and try and win the rook because the rook can't move. Okay. So let's start with that. How could the
right
rook
here.
possibly move? That's one idea. Yeah.
So go there. If he takes, I take back. Is there another way to defend this pawn? I mean, I could take here, but he just takes my. I can take back. But
Then he takes on c7 and you lose your rook.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see another way to defend this pawn.
That's right. And you've got exactly the right idea. So your knight on b8 can actually defend one or other of your pawns. If it goes to c6, it defends the e7 pawn.
Ha.
Yeah.
But again, we want to defend this pawn here because of the rook.
But
Otherwise, he can.
But when your knight moves,
Oh, when the knight moves, interesting. So if he comes here and makes, let me clear this. If he comes here, makes me move, and then is thinking about taking this, if my knight's here, my rook can defend that. So I even protect my bishop.
yeah, that's right. So basically, what we've said is that here you could lose a pawn, but you're not going to lose a piece.
Yeah. All right. So I like that. Yeah, because I'm actually protecting this pawn, protecting this, and protecting this all with one move, while giving up this one pawn over here.
Mm-hmm. So, well, that's the question. Which pawn do you want to defend? Because as soon as your knight moves, your bishop, your rook on a8 is actually safe because it's got a square to run away to.
Yeah. So yeah, I like this. I like this the best.
So you want to
He can still
save
take this pawn.
e7 rather than e7, yeah?
Yeah. Exactly, because if he goes e7, then I can move my king at safe. His next move, he can either take this pawn or he can take my
Okay.
bishop.
Now, if you put your knight on a6, he has then it's not exactly safe square. I mean, it's
Ooh,
defended,
yeah.
but he has an option there.
So you're right. I'd be trading. Well, I'd be giving up a knight for a bishop.
Yeah. But
I mean, it's not even developed yet. He's gonna use it and lose it with one move.
yeah, and then but also then he's ready to castle queenside if he wants to next turn. So what else would happen if he captures your knight on a6 and you have to recapture? You're going to end up with...
I open up this file, which this guy can sit in. So
Yeah,
isn't that good?
and also you'll have doubled and isolated pawns on the A file.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you play your knight to c6, then he can't take on e7, but he could take on c7. Then you move your rook.
Oh, I see. I didn't see what you were saying before. So if he does this anyway to try to take, I just have an escape square for my rook. And I'm not sacrificing my knight to this bishop attack.
Yeah. Or at least the risk of it.
So if he goes here, I can just move, and then he's sitting, and then he doesn't really have much after that. So that is better. And then I'm also putting another attacker on this guy, because then I have here, here, and I would have the other knight. I have 3 attackers on this e5 pawn.
Yeah.
And nothing else, because that doesn't hit. Oops. Get off there. All right, so yeah, this is actually, wow, I was so confident that the a6 was the best, but it does seem like c6 is better.
I think a6 is playable, but what you might find is bishop takes knight, then you have to recapture with your b pawn. Okay, and that's
double stacked.
Bad. But then he might capture on e7 anyway. You have to move your king, then he grabs your bishop, and then you recapture. So it's not, it's not terrible, but you may end up with those double pawns. That's all.
All right, so then this is the better move. Interesting. That is, because all I'm doing is giving an escape square.
Oh, wow.
All right, so what is he doing with this? He can come here. This pawn, it would be attacked twice if he moves here. Well, but I can take back. Where else is he going? Here, attacking this pawn twice. It goes here. He's attacking here twice. Again, a weak pawn I have not defended.
But then your knight can capture on b4.
Oh, that's right. I did defend it with that knight move.
Yeah. So what's interesting as well is that Pablo is now thinking, okay, actually, there's no way you can stop him capturing on c7, so he doesn't have to do it on the very next turn. Yeah. You can't defend that. Oh, no, I don't think there's. Oh, there. Oh, hello. Maybe you can. No, maybe you can't. I think you could take with your bishop on e5. Put your bishop on e5, grab the pawn.
He takes, I take, or I can take with either. Would I want to give up my bishop, though? Would I not want to take with a knight first and threaten his knight so that I keep this bishop? I always feel like when I'm in King's Indian, this bishop is like the guy I always try to keep last.
Oh, yeah, it's a very special piece, for sure.
Yeah.
Also, notice if that pawn moves, then b2 is vulnerable.
Okay, hold on, b2. Oh, yeah, right here. I see. So if he moves that pawn, oops. I don't know why it lets you draw angles that don't exist.
Yeah.
It should just not do it or snap to the right one. I just don't know why it does that. So yeah, so this pawn can't move or else he loses his b2 pawn.
No, you're right. I mean, you can snatch that pawn now if you want to. So we're in a situation right now where both sides have lost a queen and a pawn. So we're equal in material. The c7 pawn is at white's mercy, but likewise the e5 pawn is at your mercy.
Yeah, and I feel like if I'm going to take it, I would take with this knight here, only so that this knight can protect this square from this bishop.
Yeah, good thinking. Yeah. So another option, so one thing I'm thinking is, okay, let's figure this out. So let's say you play a nothing move now. Okay, on the next turn, white captures c7. Right? You have to move your rook, so you play rook b8. Okay, then what if white plays e6?
Right here. So if I'm there, if white plays e6, I'd have to take with my f pawn.
So that would double up your pawns on the e file, and it would kind of open up your rook a little bit. But the point of the King's Indian, I think, is not to do that. So yeah, what I'm thinking might be a good move is e6 now,
preventing his pawn from pushing down and force me to capture. So I put pressure on his knight instead of him putting pressure on my knight.
Yeah, so you're basically pushing the knight to capture on c7. Yeah. He'll capture on c7. You move your rook.
So now I'm forced to do this.
Yeah.
And he brings this.
Now you can grab the pawn, where you've got 3 attackers against 1 defender. So why did he play bishop e2?
I don't get why he would have played that. I mean, if he was going to do anything on his diagonal, he could have taken it now. But he came here. He came here, so I guess he could come this way. But now he has to move this knight. Maybe he's assuming I'm taking his pawn. The knight's going to move, and he wants this thing to be able to come in.
Or is he
sit here,
moving it where it's
to castle
on purpose? So yeah, I'm thinking he's looking at
castling
queenside, and the bishop move also defends that knight. So let's say he moved the bishop out somewhere else. Yeah, he's expecting you to capture the pawn on e5 next, and then your knight would be vulnerable,
attacking this knight.
And if you capture his knight, he will have to double his pawns in front of his king. So I think.
So he's. Yeah? I see what you're saying. He's doing that so he doesn't have to mess up his pawn structure if I win that knight.
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I normally see this and I'm always like, why? Why would he pick that? But you're right. That makes a lot of sense. That way, if I end up taking this pawn here and then take the knight, he can do it without messing up his structure.
Yeah.
So I still think that I'd take this pawn and we go down that scenario. I don't have to take the knight once I take this pawn if I don't want, depending on his next move. If I take it and he takes back, this knight is protecting. But I still have 3 attackers in the square.
Yeah. So I think if you took that pawn with your bishop, he would recapture it with his knight.
Yeah.
His bishop would then be attacking his knight on c7 and the pawn on b2. So I think that would force him to take your bishop off, and that would be a bad thing because, then he would have a dark squared bishop, and you wouldn't.
And I wouldn't. And then where my king's at, that would be bad.
Yeah, because your pawn structure around your king is all on light squares.
Yeah, so I need to save this guy. I'm thinking I take with the.
Okay.
With the d knight.
Let's do it.
And let's see if he takes. He doesn't. Oh, he doesn't even have the ability to castle anymore. So why did he do that move? It was not the castle, I guess. It was
defending the knight.
Solely to defend the knight. He's not castling at all.
For some reason, he figured, why didn't he just castle? Oh, okay. So if he castled, you grab his knight, and then that's a discovered attack by the bishop on b2. Yeah? If he'd castled queenside, but why did he do that rather than castle? Well.
So if I go here. If he would have castled, his king would still be protecting it.
Okay. So let's look at the board now. Let's look at where the pawns are on the board. And so how do you read the board now? So the fact that white's just moved their king means what?
They can't castle anymore. He's stuck kind of in the center. He has 3 pieces developed. I guess if you don't castle, you don't get that extra 2 points.
Yeah. Well, it means that those rooks are going to struggle to get into the game. He's actually
he has 4 pieces. Yeah, I missed this knight down here. I still have to worry about this guy. Or is he just sitting there not really able to do much because he can't take, can't go. He's kind of.
Okay, so
his only move is right here.
So one idea is to take that move away from him.
Yeah, push the A pawn. He can't go there anymore.
And you've effectively boxed in that knight. He's imprisoned. That's definitely an idea.
I was also thinking, oh no, I can't. I was looking at this to put 2 attackers on this, but then this vulnerable to that.
So how do you assess the? Okay, so we've actually gone past a milestone now, almost. If your bishop was off the back rank, you've completed development. Okay, and that means you're coming into the middle game. Now, in the middle game, development ceases to be your prime objective, and your prime objective then becomes How can I improve my pieces move by move and think about lining up an attack against my opponent? Okay. So how would you assess the relative strength of White's pieces right now?
I would say he. Okay, I mean his pawns. While he doesn't have any center pawns, his other pawns seem fine. So I don't see anything wrong with his pawn structure.
Mm-hmm.
His rooks aren't in the game, but neither are mine. There is an open file that I have access, or a semi-open file that I have access to, but he doesn't.
That's actually an open file because there are no pawns on it.
Okay.
Yeah, a semi-open file means there's pawns of one color. An open file means there's no pawns of either color.
No pawns, but you could have minor pieces and it's still considered open.
Yeah. Pieces is
okay.
is different matter.
All right, so then basically the D file is open. I can put a rook here, putting pressure on this bishop.
Okay, so his rooks are a bit on pause right now because it's going to take several moves for either of them to get involved in the game. Well, I mean, he could play his rook on H to D1 or E1. That's reasonable and rational.
Would H2 be a good move for a rook? I would never put my rook there.
No, I wouldn't say so.
I mean, if I was him, I would look at putting my rook here for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, the battle for the open file is very, very common. So how about his bishops? How do you rate the strength of his bishops?
Well, the bishop pair is supposed to be super strong. I mean, he is blasting, like, it's not directed necessarily right at the king, but I mean, he is covering some diagonals that way for sure. Better than my bishops right now. Don't really see much of anything.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that because his bishops are currently lined up pointing at the sides of the board, that they're presently not strong, but they could be improved. Right now, they're not strong. Your bishop, however, is lined up towards a pawn in front of the king. Of course, there's no queen, but...
Okay, so yeah, that's still considered... I can have a discovered attack on this pawn at any point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say that your dark squared bishop is pretty good. Your light squared bishop is not at this point.
And he's only got one move. I can go here.
Yeah.
What if... So, and that would complete development. So the idea here being to complete development is the most important. There's no impending threats. If he takes, I can take back. Going here helps develop. These guys see each other, which apparently is a good thing if your rooks can see each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just completing development would be the idea here.
I mean, that is one way, but if you think about it, right now, your bishop has a scope of 2 squares. You've got C8 and D7, yeah? You move it to D7, it's got a scope of 3 squares because it's still blocked off by your knight and your pawn. Now, at the beginning of this move, we also talked about the idea of trapping White's advanced knight. So another alternative might be to play A6 and B5. Yeah. And to put your other bishop on B7, where it's on a long diagonal, just like your dark square bishop, where it's looking at that knight, it's looking at the pawn behind it, it's actually undefended, and the rook. So I might say that, yeah, it's a move slower, but it's not really, because in 3 moves, you've got that bishop onto a really dangerous diagonal.
Yeah. And I trap that knight. So rather than develop right away, I do a move to trap his knight, and then one more. So basically, it takes a few more moves, but it does put it into a really good spot.
Yeah, I mean, with A6, the knight is trapped.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of trapping a knight. I had a game recently where a queen got into my side, and the way I pushed, position everything, it couldn't attack anything without dying. I trapped it and then killed it with a bishop.
Brilliant.
And it seemed like I was losing. I made a few mistakes to get into that position, but I was able to fight out of it. So I do like the idea of trapping it on my side.
Another principle as well is that, I mean, we're not in an opposite side castle situation, but White's king is on the other side of the board from your king. So when you've got your opponent's king that's on the other side of the
Opposite.
board, it makes sense to advance your pawns up against that king.
Full on attack when you're on opposite sides.
Yeah. So I'd say that on balance, a6 is a good move here.
So if I go here and then go here next, this pawn becomes unprotected though. The a6 pawn.
Not while your bishop's there.
Oh yeah. Once that moves, he's protecting it.
And even if your bishop's on b7, it's still protecting that pawn.
Okay. Yep. I like it now. I was worried that as soon as I moved that, then he could take that pawn, but you're right. I can still defend. All right. So what did he do? He moved his rook, protecting this pawn again.
And also moving the rook out of the line of sight of your sniper bishop.
Oh. Okay. I still think that means we can continue the plan.
I think, yeah, carry on with the plan.
Because that's protected that way. That's awesome. Wow.
Okay, now centralize the rook. We expected that.
Yeah, which we can still do eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I go here.
Yep.
So if he takes, I take. So he's pushing this pawn. I could almost push, and if he takes, take back with my knight. Nope, I get taken here.
Mm-hmm. And also, yeah, your pawns are doing an important job of imprisoning that knight right now. So
just leave them potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if he pushes again, do I take? Or let him take and take here?
If he pushes and you take, then suddenly there are 2 attackers against one of your pawns and only 1 defender.
So I must have to let him take and then retake here. Because this knight still can't go there.
Think it through. Let's say you play a kind of ordinary move now. If white plays a4 on their next move, threatening your pawn. Yeah. And you take, then look at your a6 pawn. It's counterattackers and defenders against that pawn.
Oh.
Okay. And that surely
is
releases
bad.
the knight. Okay. So this is now a question of the clock's ticking. You need to count what can happen move by move.
Yeah, so if he goes, I almost just have to let him take, and I take here. His knight still can't get out. Oh no, his knight could get out by killing.
Yeah, your knight
he could get out.
Okay, so for that reason, I would say that what you need to do next is attack the knight.
So options to attack the knight are here, here.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, yeah, because if I give him more time, it blows up in my face over here. So I have to put the pressure on the knight now.
You have to do it right now, or now or never.
So, so I'm thinking this rook for now.
Okay.
If he goes to here, he's dead. Here, he's dead. Here, he's dead. Here, he's dead. Here, the pawn. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'll win by 1 more move.
Okay.
So this knight is going to go. All right, so he's going to take out a pawn to do it. So I have to take here.
That's called the desperado capture.
Yep.
It means when you know that you're going to lose material, it's like, okay, how many of these suckers can I take out on my way out?
Yep. So yeah, so he took a pawn because it's the best he could do. I take back with my pawn.
Yep.
Because that's the only option I really have.
And now it's really important to reassess.
So he's now attacking. Oh, there we go again with the messed up lines. He's looking down this diagonal. I always have to draw the line so I can see for whatever reason. But this is coming too. I almost feel like I can trade this off. He doesn't have a back. Well, he's got that. Mm-hmm. So if I were to take, he could take with either one. But I've got 2. He's only got 1. Let's see. He's still defending that knight. I mean, I've got 2 attackers on this, though. He's got 2 defenders.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of imbalances, I mean, the one key imbalance right now in the game is that you are actually up a knight for a pawn.
Oh yeah,
So
+2.
for that reason, just in crude terms, equal trades right now will benefit you.
Okay.
Because the more
So
equal
simple,
trades you get, the closer you get to finishing the game with an extra piece. So yeah, that's one idea. Is knight there.
because I'm putting pressure here. I'd be putting pressure on that pawn again.
Hmm.
If he takes, I can take back with my pawn.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do I have? That's not defended. That's not defended. Let's see. Oops. It's the only thing I'm really seeing right now. I mean, other than lining up the rooks and offering a trade there, which, like you said, simplifying now since I'm already up 2 is not horrible.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if I do this, would he even take? If he takes, then I have control of that whole file. If he
Hmm.
doesn't take, and then his bishop will be sitting right next to his king, not defending this knight.
It would still be.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. 'Cause
Hmm.
that diagonal. What am I thinking?
Yes, I mean that's one of. I mean, you could simply trade knights, but then if you take and then light square bishop takes, your knight on c6 is actually effectively pinned because the bishop behind it is undefended.
Yeah.
That's all I'm thinking. So maybe
When I
the
like this knight here, just has all the central control. If I trade it off,
yeah, and
like
out
this
of
knight here is just protecting here, here. It's got all these nice squares.
hmm, yeah, and the reason is that if you draw a square from like f3 c3 f6 c6, see where his knight is, and make a 4 by 4 square. Uh,
I'm gonna do what now?
yeah, so
Like
the
this?
4 by 4. So yeah, so hit f3 where his knight is, and c6 where your knight is. Yeah, and c3 and f6 as well, right?
C3, F6.
Coordinates matters. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. And
So,
then,
so
okay,
that
look
is
at
that
this.
is the central 4 by 4 square. Okay. The center of the board is actually e4, e5, d4, d5. Okay, that's the absolute center. But this bigger square, this middle 4 by 4, right? If a knight is inside that square, it's controlling its maximum number of squares, which is 8.
Ah,
If a knight's
okay.
outside of that square, then it's to some degree restricted. And a knight, for example, that's right in the corner is only controlling 2 squares. Whereas
Yeah, so I read this as the hilltop, and then these outside ones the hill.
okay,
In some
yeah, that
book,
makes
I
sense.
forget.
That
Yeah,
makes yeah.
but
So
yeah. So I
out
rather
of
like
his
that
two
knight
bishops,
there.
which do you think is the stronger of his two bishops?
Well, the stronger his 2 bishops. All my pawns are on white squares. All my
Mhm.
pieces, like.
Yeah,
So does that make, if my pawns are in light, does that make his dark square better because it can zip in and out, or is one
yeah,
that can attack them?
yeah. It kind of depends. I mean, it can change different ways in the end game, but in general, there are several squares, like 10 squares on the board. Maybe not 10, but several important squares on the board where his light square bishop cannot land because it could be captured by a pawn. There's about
Yeah.
five squares or so.
Ah. So then his dark one is right now is more powerful
Yeah, it's got more scope to move around. It's freer. Okay, so your idea of playing knight to c4
to
that
attack it.
actually attacks his stronger bishop, and also if you were to capture that bishop, he gets an isolated pawn as well. So I think that that's interesting. I think centralizing your rooks and proposing a rook trade is also interesting.
The rooks is my first thought, but I like the knight idea better right
Mhm.
now. I mean, if he ever moves this knight, this pawn's done with this one. That rook's,
Yeah.
This rook isn't really needed here, but I can move it later still. I'm thinking about doing the knight move,
Do that.
and if he retakes, I take.
Okay.
So then that's what we plan for. I take.
Now, you've got some isolated pawns, but he's down a bishop now. The bishop pair is gone after you recapture.
Interesting.
Okay.
So I can defend that one. This one's already defended for now, but he has the same color bishop, so he could attack it again. If he goes there and I take, I lose it.
Your knight's covering that square as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually, well, there's 3 ways that you can protect your bishop, or at least. You can protect it with your knight. You could play knight d8 or knight a5. Neither of which is great because you're moving your knight outside of the center of the board and putting it on the edge. And knights on the rim are dim, as we all know.
Yep.
Another option is to drop the bishop back to a8, where it's defended by the rook.
Okay.
Yeah. A
I'm
third
not
option
defending.
Defend it with the rook, but there's actually another way that you can defend it with a rook, which is an X-ray defense. And that would be rook f7, yeah. Rook f7 both attacks the attacker and defends the piece behind it.
Yeah, and if he takes, I take with the king.
You take with the king, and you've simplified further.
Yeah, there we go. I like it.
And you've
Already
still got your king on a light square.
Yeah. And if he comes down, I take. He basically just has to retreat.
He has to retreat or trade off. Yeah. Okay, this is all good. So now you're up a full bishop. Okay.
All right, so that knight is defended. If I come back here, I defend this pawn with the king.
Yeah.
And he only has a dark squared bishop, so he can't do anything.
He's actually attacking 3 squares right now.
Oh, this pawn too.
Yeah.
Right here. So if I oh, I see. So if I go here, he takes.
The question is, which pawn do you want to save?
Well, it's nice to have a center pawn, but at the same time, it's nice to have my king defended over here with these pawns. I kind of like this, having the defense over here and not having to worry about it. If I come here and I'm defending that pawn, his one bishop isn't going to be able to do anything. My king's on a light square. My pawns are on a light square.
Yeah. And also, I would say that having your G and your H pawns together could be stronger in the ending, whereas your E pawn is actually isolated.
So yeah, it's already isolated. Why save the isolated pawn?
Yeah, I'd say that's an inherent weakness. So also, you have to bear in mind as well, his rook is terrible. His remaining
It can't do anything.
No.
And I now can move my rook eventually to the D file, which is open. And if the E file opens up, I can go here too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm thinking just defend this the H pawn.
Okay.
So he takes, and then I can just do this, which puts pressure.
Yeah.
He's got that pawn protecting it though, so it's not like I'm gonna be like a bluff. If I wanted to further simplify, I could trade off dark square bishops.
That wouldn't work. Why wouldn't it work?
Oh, because his knight.
Yeah, so you'd actually lose a piece. Oh,
yeah. I would take back, but then I'd lose it. Yeah, I would lose both. So I'm thinking kind of just if I go here, he's kind of forced to move that knight because it's hanging. If he moves it, I've got line of sight then on this bishop. I obviously can't go to the open file because he's protecting it with his knight. Right? I can't go to D or F. Where my rook is now, it prevents his knight from going here. Where would his knight like to go? Oh, it's attacking my bishop right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have to take care of that first.
Well, I mean, that would be another trade relatively equal. I mean, it'd be nice to keep the bishop pair for sure. Your bishop pair is strong, really strong in the ending. But
Yeah.
at the same time, in fact, you're 2 pawns down for your extra piece. Hmm.
And I've got isolated pawns here.
So he's got a 3-on-2 pawn majority on both sides of the board. Your advantage is you've got an extra bishop.
So I don't want to lose that advantage by trading it off right now, right?
Maybe not. I mean, one thing I was thinking is you could try and like put your bishop in line with his bishop and his king, and force a trade of bishops. That's one idea. You can't play it straight away
Yeah,
there.
because I can't defend it right now.
Another option, which would probably mean that he captures your bishop, if you played knight d8, then that's actually a double attack, because you're attacking his knight and you're also then attacking something else.
I
Which
get to
would
win
be
that pawn.
nice to break up this gang of 3 pawns. If you could break that up.
Yeah, so I make his structure like mine on this side.
Yeah.
Just 2 isolated pawns. If I do that, I have the risk of losing my bishop, but I win his knight.
I think he's almost certain to capture your bishop. But,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world. And then you end up with an opposite colored bishop ending as well. So
Which,
you could keep that in your pocket as an idea.
so that's one idea, which comes with that. I do like having that light squared bishop having a lot more vision. I hate losing. I will say every time I play King's Indian, I probably do more than I should to protect this bishop. I don't know why, but it's what I always do. And if I play the London, I lose this bishop all the time.
Yeah.
Because I keep the other bishop. That's on the inside of the pawn triangle thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. I guess that's the best thing. It's going to simplify more now. Let's see. Yeah. And I get that knight out of there. And then we have 2 opposite color bishops, which means they're not going to impact each other at all. I have a better rook, and I should be able to clean up his pawns with that.
Yeah. I mean, or you've also got rook e8 and attack the knight that way.
Which he still ends up taking this.
Still end up taking, but then your rook's on an open file. And if his bishop moves, you've got rook e1.
Yeah. Which puts him in check, so he has to come down. Yeah, that's.
And trade rooks. And then at least you've got that.
Well, I would win that rook, right?
Oh yeah, you would.
I would win because he has to come out here. I win that rook.
Exactly.
So actually, that's looking better, which was I think my first thought too, just because these guys are stacked together. All right, and that. Yeah, that would force me to lose that, but what can I do? So he's going to go there, I take, and then what are my plans?
Wait, you could move your bishop to f7 or e5 if you wanted to, if saving it is more important. I mean, you don't have to rush, but remember that the clock ticks, and every move that you spend doing nothing is a move that your opponent could get his king out, get his rook out.
Yeah, so at least I know. So if I do this, he goes here, I recapture, and I'm just thinking of like what I do after that. Then I think after that, I still want to move this knight to open up that and take out that pawn. But I should have plenty of places I can put it. So yeah, I'm thinking I'll just do this move.
Okay, let's do it.
And he's going to take, and I'll take that. Yep. So now I can, okay, I wasn't even thinking about what he was going to do. He's pressuring.
Okay,
So
why did he play b3?
Because I think he wants to open up the attack.
Of course he does.
So if I push instead, then he doesn't get to get his rook out, which is basically in prison right now.
Yeah, and also, what does that do to his bishop?
All right, so what does that do to his bishop? That means, well, that allows his bishop to come in here if he wanted to. It gives the bishop.
So if
you're asking what it does to his or my bishop?
His bishop. If your pawn is on c3, right? How many
I guess
does the king have to move to?
Oh, he can't go here or here.
Okay. And therefore, what is the bishop doing? What's the bishop's preventing?
Oh, the bishop's preventing this checkmate. So it pins the bishop. Oh, wow. That's a bad move on his part. You're right. So if I just push.
Let's try it. Yeah. So now you could play, for example, knight d4. Yeah.
Oh, because it's,
just for an example, the bishop can't capture you because you've got rook e1 mate.
Well, then after I go here, I could go here next. Well, so if I do this and let me get rid of that. If I come here, he can't capture because that's mate. I also get that pawn.
Yeah.
And I also have ability to checkmate him, which would make him come over towards, not checkmate, check. Yeah.
To d1, yeah. But then you might actually trap your own knight. You don't want to trap your own knight. If your knight's on e2, it doesn't have many squares. Could end up on g1. But I mean, you could just casually move the knight. Yeah, you can move the knight. You can always bring it back to f5 or wherever if you want. He cannot capture. Then on your next turn, you can grab that pawn, unless he moves it.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, knight f5 hits the bishop.
Whoa. So he cannot go here, here, or here. Isn't that checkmate?
That's what he's saying. He's saying checkmate.
That's checkmate, right?
I think so. Oh, no, it's not. Try it.
Oh, he put me in check. I'm like, this is checkmate. What is he thinking? Yeah, I'm in check. You said try it. That's hilarious.
Oh man, sorry.
No, you're fine. This is great. This is exactly why we do this.
Okay, so we've lost the knight. Didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, but I move, and then what does he do? Just go back?
He goes back and checks you again, but just move on to a light square. So like f7.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
At this point in time, generally, you'd be wanting to think about moving your king towards the center.
So, to the center?
Yeah, your king becomes activated at this point. It actually becomes one of your strongest pieces. So,
see, I think that's one of my weaknesses. I am not that great after like the opening. I can do the opening, maybe some mid game, but then like sometimes I'm too afraid to move my king, and and the pawns around it that I'm like, leave it. It's good. But I guess it's not good to the end of the game. It's only good till you get to the end game.
Yeah, that's the whole kind of terrain and story of the game changes in the different phases, and that's the thing to be sensitive about. Like, when do you start charging up with pawns to try and promote? When do you bring your king to the middle of the board? Yeah.
Huh.
Oh,
so I guess what I should have done before this move, like if I go back, I should have moved my king to a light square.
I was going to say that earlier on. Let's think about getting all your pieces onto light squares, and we didn't do it.
Didn't do it, and that's why you do it. Lesson learned, right? That's funny.
Well, that's why we're here. We're all here to learn. Chess is always learning. Okay, so I think king f7 now is the way to go.
Oh, hold on, I got it. There we go.
Now he's got to move back bishop e3. Okay, now at least you've got a free pawn.
Yeah.
But you're now a pawn down in the game.
But I can take the next pawn. Well, he's probably going to walk here.
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe attack now with your rook. You've got a pawn stuck on c3, which is a dark square, so that's going to be a target for that bishop.
This one. But as long as I keep my rook here, he can't move.
That's true. Okay, so he's going to want to wriggle his king out of danger there. Huh.
How can he? If well, I could.
And this is the thing with the opposite coloured bishop situation, that your bishops now cannot interact at all.
At all.
So when he's got that pawn on f2 and bishop on e3, that situation now, your king can't touch either of those pieces. Your rook can't really capture the bishop because it would be, going down in material. Okay, so I think we have to go after the h4 pawn. And if he moves it forward, you can grab it with your pawn, at least.
So right here.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just take.
Yeah, and now...
It doubles up my pawn, but then I can just walk up the board.
Yeah. That's the thing. And remember, his king is still 2 moves away from getting away.
And he can't even... His rook is not defending the first rank.
Let's go for it. Ooh,
oh, look at that.
That's weird. That
Why is he doing that?
Situation. Okay, I think
why
we march on with... Yeah, son of Harry. All right, so he's trying to get an escape, but...
So if he goes here, he can attack my pawn. But that's 1, 2 moves.
Okay, so...
I got 1, 2. That would be 1 square away from promoting.
Yeah.
So I think I continue to march.
And how, if he had to stop your pawn at any cost, how would he do it?
Any cost, what he would have to do is, here
and rook
here.
Takes. Yeah, he plays bishop f4, rook takes. I don't think he can stop you.
I don't think so either. It's going to take him too long to get out this way.
Yeah.
I would be up here by the time he kills his pawn.
Yeah.
And my next move, he's in check.
Yep. That's very important.
I think I continue to do that.
Indeed.
I just keep pushing.
Yeah.
All right. I still think I'm good. What is he? Oh, if he moves down.
Well, he can't go there, but he can go to e2.
Then, okay, yeah, you're right.
Then
so he's going here.
But you're then going to be a rook up.
Oh, yeah, because I kill it.
Unless you play bishop f3 now. With check. Stop him from getting off the back rank.
Ha! Yeah, because then that's not safe and that's not safe. He'd have to move back and then... No, that's not safe either.
Yeah, he'd have to move either to c1 or e1.
And either one of those is 2 moves off the back rank. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best move. I'm pleased with myself for spotting that.
Yeah, that's a great one. Because now he has to move this back over.
Even so,
Yeah, so
he's got time. Because
I've got plenty of time.
Off the back rank, so how's it not going to... Okay. Whew.
I can take that now.
It would be a mistake.
Because it opens this up, takes that.
So talk it through. If you promote to a queen now...
He's checked. He has to go here.
You can't go there.
Oh, wow. That's checkmate.
Nope.
No, he's going to go here.
And then...
And I take with either one. Then that's checkmate.
Yeah, you can take it with a rook and it's checkmate. Woo!
Yeah, either one looks like checkmate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ha-ha! That's awesome.
That was good. I thought we'd lost our grip on that after that blunder, losing the knight.
And it didn't actually end up mattering. Yeah, that knight... Let me get this thing off the screen.
Yeah, it's weird. And that weird pawn that we thought was actually a vulnerability turned out to be...
This guy?
Quite evil.
Yeah, I mean, it completely limited him. And then having this rook, so the decision to keep this rook looking right here ended up really paying off as well, because it just pinned this guy.
Yeah.
Somehow this rook and this pawn working together were devastating.
Okay, so let's walk it through these final 10 moves then. So we played knight d4.
Which was kind of the mistake, is what I should have been looking at all light squares because of his.
Yeah, if your king had been on a light square at that point, the bishop could not have captured the knight.
And the idea was then we were going to take this pawn.
Yeah. Okay, so how did it pan out? The bishop takes knight with check, and we go, oh no, my king.
Yeah, that was funny. I was like, that's checkmate, right? You said try it, and I did, and it beeped at me, and then showed my king in red.
Obviously, I only spotted it moments before you did.
Blunders, mistakes. I'm curious if that blunder is the knight move.
Yeah, I'd just like to see how we won this, though. Can we walk through to the end again?
Yeah.
Okay, then
we knew he had to go back, because if he didn't, then we've got this checkmate. And then we're like, well, we were going for that pawn anyway, so we basically traded the knight for the pawn.
And then you play rook e4, hitting the pawn.
Yep. So he pushes, and then we trade or I take the pawn, and then I just run to the goal line.
Yeah.
I think he messed up there. He probably should have kept the rook and moved the king over, and then got the king here, because then he would have been able to have his rook out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's his mistake. If he doesn't put the rook here, he was doing that to push to come down and come out this way, but that takes too long. If he stayed back, moved the king, moved the king. What's that?
It looked bad when he played it.
It did. We both were like, why is he doing that? And then he pushed his pawn down, and we're like, oh, to come out, but that just takes too long. He could have gotten his king here, and then this would have protected that rank as soon as, I guess, I mean, being on the other side, I know it's an AI, but I would not see this guy as running just yet. But that was our plan, and it worked.
What a good game. And then we calculated it's just too late.
This next move by you, really, you saw this one.
Yeah.
That just stopped his ability. That was beautiful.
He's just finished. And that's just desperate. But you see how tempting it is to grab the material.
Yeah, I was the first thing. Oh, I could take that. Yeah.
If you'd have grabbed the bishop, king takes the pawn, and suddenly he's kind of free. I mean, and then you get a queen, and he captures it with his rook, and he's still kind of got his fingertips in the game. But that way, it's all over. So this is all about being pragmatic. If I do this, what's he going to do? What are his options? How do we win?
I'm curious what the
finish to that. Okay, let's have a look.
What the blunder is.
Or you can do game report as well. Game report might be
let's see.
More user friendly.
See, it always opens up a new tab. So let me reshare a new tab. I'm on Linux, so the sharing's a little bit different.
Okay.
Chrome tab, analysis board, share.
Are you in the IT business?
I am. Yeah, I'm a IT systems engineer.
Okay.
What is your day job?
I'm a marketing manager for a startup.
Oh, nice.
In my day job, I also work for a kind of a health and performance biohacking group. And,
oh, that's cool.
And make chess videos in my spare time. And I make didgeridoos. You
make what? What is that last one?
Didgeridoo, so ancient Australian wind instrument that that's my summertime hobby.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. I used to do IT for a biotech company. They did some weird stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be a computer technician years ago.
Oh, really?
I started out as a web designer in 1994. Yeah.
So 1994 web design is HTML4 before CSS. That's old school, where you're using tables to create like layouts.
HTML1.
1? Okay.
94, we had the Mosaic browser.
Oh gosh.
I remember Netscape coming out. Put it that way.
Okay, so yeah, I guess when I was doing web, it was more like 1999. I was finishing high school. I got into web, and that would have been HTML4, and that's when I started. Before they had like really cool ways to format, and you're basically using HTML4 and table structures to
Loads.
create different cool looking spaces for your page.
Yeah, yeah. Look at that, 95.9% accuracy.
Nice.
So, do we have a blunder?
We have one blunder. Let's click this guy.
Oh, and we know what it
It
was.
was the night move.
Of course, it was.
it's
He said
it's
it was
the night move. That's hilarious.
how frustrating. But and then he got.
And a missed win.
Oh, we crushed him.
Why? Oh, it wanted, instead of walking the pawn, to move the rook over, and then I guess up here.
Okay, I mean that would have made the pawn equally unstoppable, but I don't see how. Oh, rook h4
But it
is
also,
mate in two.
I mean, it frees up his dark square bishop, but his dark square bishop doesn't really have much to do.
How is rook h4
Well,
mate in two?
so if you go here,
Ah, and then rook h1 is mate.
yeah, because he would go here, potentially attack that pawn, but then you just go up here and mate.
Wow. Wow.
Either way, they were forcing. I don't think there was anything he could have done with the way we chose.
That's the thing. You know, sometimes people say, oh, you know, you missed a forced mate, but at the end of the day, if you get the win, that's all that counts.
Especially if you get the win in a forced way. It just is a longer forced way. It's like if you calculate a way that's guaranteed to win, and you don't take the time to find a shorter version, I don't see that as a problem, right?
No, no. Good stuff. Good stuff. I mean, what a great game.
And then 3 mistakes. Oh, they wanted to trade that off. Sometimes I look at the analysis and I just don't understand why they want to do stuff. Like especially when it's saying that there's a mistake and I ended up accomplishing my goal. I just find that funny.
Also, you have to remember that this computer is looking, what is it? Depth 18. Yeah?
Yeah, yep, by default.
Okay. So this computer is looking 18 moves into the future, right? And so it's going to find things that are a mistake if you can see 18 moves into the future, but are not a mistake if you can't. And humans can't. That's the thing. That's what, you know, that's the big change since computers got smarter than us at chess.
Huh. So I wonder if it's more beneficial to put that down to like 3 moves. Because I feel like I could only see 3 moves.
I think, you know, there's a very good case for saying that, actually.
Yeah, for going against humans, I mean, why not?
Yeah, totally. But yeah, very, very satisfying result there. And when we covered a lot of little bits of stuff as well, didn't we?
Yes, definitely. I loved it. That was awesome. Very cool. And that was King's Indian, which I feel always weaker with. And you said you recorded this, so I can always go back and rewatch it. I can look at this
I'll
game,
send you the link.
really
it takes about 30 minutes to render on Zoom, so it might be tomorrow when I do it because it's Friday.
Yeah, that's fine.